Hey, nurses. Nice to see you. Happy day before Thanksgiving 2018. And I'm so excited to introduce to you Karen Lake today. So, Karen is a nurse, and today we're going to be talking about her bouncing back from burnout story. So, Karen, tell us what got you into nursing in the first place and how long you've been a nurse.
I don't really know why I got into nursing. It's funny when you said you were going to ask me that because I went right into university out of high school. And to be honest, in high school, I really don't think I knew what I wanted to do, like a lot of people. And I didn't have any nurses in my family that I was, following their lead.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking to a guidance counselor, and I actually thought nursing was, I think, kind of glamorous and well paid.
Oh,
And I kind of remember them sort of steering us into different paths, right? But I don't remember having like a clear desire that I wanted to be a nurse. I feel like I was maybe pulled in that way or pushed in that way by some random guidance counselor, because I really didn't know, but I kind of had more an affinity for like biology and chemistry and that kind of thing. So it wasn't some strong, deep-seated desire. I know some people it comes to them that way, but it wasn't that way for me. And I didn't come from a family of nurses. And that was almost 30 years ago.
Wow. So
yeah.
What kept you in nursing for 30
I know I don't look that old.
No, you sure don't. Way to own that. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It's funny. My friend Jolene and I were talking yesterday, and I was like, Jolene, I've been in healthcare for 16 years at the same hospital. She was like, no, you're not old enough. And I was like, I know. So funny. So 30 years.
Yeah, you kind of just have to own it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in that 30 years, let's kind of fast forward to the place where you were really feeling burned out. Like, tell me that story and tell me how it really affected you both professionally and personally.
Well, I was drawn into home health probably at about year, I forget what year. But I'll say it was like around 1997 because it was after my oldest son was born, and he's now 22. So, but I got into the home health, and I knew that was my niche. And as nurses, and like most professions, we're always looking for our niche, right? Yeah. And after dabbling a lot in medicine and surgery and even a little psychiatry, orthopedics, I traveled down to the US for a couple of years and worked in South Texas and Florida. That was super exciting. But home back here in Canada was calling me back. And when I found my niche, I loved in-home health, and I loved the idea of seeing people at home and supporting them at home, seeing their family, meeting their care support system, being creative, because in home care you really have to be, and working really independently. So I loved home health, and I knew that that's where I wanted to be. And I worked in home health, like in the field, and then I moved into management and did the same job essentially for about 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was as a manager, and there really wasn't any room to go up. At one point, there may have been an opportunity to move into a director position, but I really, ironically enough, now I'm a business owner. I didn't see myself as a business person. I really liked the connection with the clients and the family, so I knew I didn't want to be doing spreadsheets and KPIs and predictors and budgets and stuff. I was like, ugh. I knew that, and that was the only way up. Like that was the only next step up for me with this organization. So essentially, I kind of did the same job for a lot of years. And I just remember going to work and saying to myself, am I going to do this same job in this same place for the rest of my working career? And I'm still, I felt like I still had a lot of years to give. And that was how I was going to work and feeling that way. And there was definitely that. And then the other thing, and you and I have talked about this, because the environment that I was working in, at least I wasn't happy there, and there was a sense that it was a difficult environment. I used to pray that today's day would be better. And that was how I started my day, getting off the elevator. So it was those two indicators that were coming to me daily, and I didn't listen to them. And I debated, going to a different position. I did a couple of interviews. I was exploring loosely, but like a lot of us, I had a good job. They paid me well.
Yep.
For the most part. My field work, the client relationships I enjoyed. A lot of the interactions with the staff I enjoyed, but I knew there was something inside of me that just wasn't right.
Yeah.
And starting my day with those two thoughts going through my head, I just, but I didn't listen. I didn't listen to those voices that were trying to tell me something, because like I say, with a lot of nurses, I just stayed where I was. And the security of it, I guess, right? Because, as nurses, we say that a lot, like, you've got a good nursing job. If you get a good nursing job, you kind of hang on to it. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us. We get too comfortable, and we tolerate a lot, and we don't really listen to.
Yeah, I find it really amazing what we can justify in our own minds. Like, our intuition will tell us, like, this position has reached its expiration date, because there are things in life that are not meant to continue on forever. And it's hard to let go of what's comfortable. It's hard to change into something new. And it's really easy for our subconscious to, strap on those positive pants and shush that intuition, because, like, it's a good job. They pay me really well. And, like, even though you're, like, kind of dying inside and praying every morning that you have a good day, you still, like, will justify it. So I totally believe, like, I resonate with that. And I am certain that there are many other nurses that resonate with that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A big part of it was the security of the job. During that time, my first marriage came to an end. So there was a lot of change. And I mean, I had to work, right? And it wasn't a time to change jobs. And again, in nursing world, this was probably considered a pretty good gig. I was working Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. I had a nice office, benefits, a decent salary, holidays off. You were always, like, weighing it in your mind. But because I was not happy, to me, the environment just was not happy. I don't like to point fingers outwards. I'm more at this point about pointing inwards and really self-reflecting on where I was. And for me, that just wasn't where I needed to be anymore. And so in my view, that was a bad place. And everyone in it was bad. Everyone in it was bad. Even though I'm sure they're good people, to me, it was just a bad place and not a good place. And I didn't listen.
So given that mindset, like, please let this be a better day. Like, this is not a good place. I know it's not a good fit anymore. How were you showing up? Like, given that was your mindset, how were you showing up in the workplace?
I can't say it on this recording, but I'll tell you, body language speaks volumes. And I didn't really know this. And I think a lot of us aren't always really aware of what our body language says. But one of the people in my workplace actually said to me, and again, I'd have to beep it out. I think she said I was just working away at my computer and probably dealing with, a larger issue, because as the manager of clinical practice, I did deal with the big stuff, the serious stuff. So I could have been dealing with something quite serious, but she came along and she said, the look on your face says F off and go away. Wow. And I thought, whoa. But that was, so when you're saying, how was I presenting? From her perspective, that's what it said. And I was like checking myself and I'm like, are you serious? Like I would never want to give that impression. But yeah, so from an outside perspective, that's what someone's perception was. But I do remember feeling very not challenged and disengaged. And I felt like I was just putting on a face. Like people would say, how people always greet you in the morning. How are you? Yep, great. Yeah, it's going to be a great day.
She says, dripping in sarcasm.
It was so like I was being fake, right? But because that's what everybody wants to hear. Like, do you really want to hear how I feel? That I just prayed that today's going to be a better day, and I hope we can all get along and get through this day, and that we can be productive, and that I'm thinking secretly in my head, do I even want to do this for the next 25 years? But no, people don't want to hear that.
No.
They want to just hear, yep, it's great. Let's have a great day.
Right.
So I was not.
Says, like, people don't want to hear your crap because they have their own crap. So just, put on the face and go about your day.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I used to say that too. There used to be a girl that would come to work and we used to kind of have to say to her, like, check your baggage at the door. So we kind of all work by that philosophy, right? It's like there's serious stuff happening here and like check that at the door. So you don't really bring that stuff into the workplace, but it does come out in your expression, obviously. Your body language says that. I'm like, whoa. And like I say, I wasn't being sincere. I was disengaged, disinterested, irritated by everybody around me. Just very irritated and impatient, and not understanding, like, why are you not all why don't you know this? Like impatience, really, like.
Right.
Yeah, just a lot. Isn't that a lot of negative feelings? Like I really don't remember a lot of positive. I think I did receive some positivity from the client relationships I had, and probably some of the field staff relationships that I had. But there wasn't a lot of positivity in those days. And yeah, it's kind of sad when I think of it now. Yeah, it's sad.
Right. So then what happened? I mean, you're showing up with this like F off face that you think says like,
apparently so.
It doesn't. And then, so what happened?
Well, one day I was terminated. Yeah. I mean, obviously, for legal reasons, I can't get into that. But there was a supervisor from head office appeared at my door. And I thought I was being punked. Is that what that show is called, Punked?
I think so.
What's that show where they're playing a joke on you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought was going on.
No.
I was in denial, right? I thought they were here to say something serious had happened to someone else and that I had to be in charge. I really didn't know. And then I saw my name on the envelope. And other people obviously had been, there had been frequent terminations within the organization. It was just the way that it was. And I was always a part of their termination as second in command. So now all of a sudden it was me. And I remember I was like table flipping mad. I was mad because I thought, what do you mean? Like me, like I run the place, like I'm the one that has my thumb on everything, and it was me. So yeah, a couple of years ago, I wouldn't be able to openly say I was fired. But today, after healing and time obviously has passed, I'm able to like stand in it and realize it was just part of this journey. And when you don't listen to those little voices that are trying to tell you something, someone will get your attention.
Yeah.
So if you really need that serious wake up call, then you might get it. And for me, that definitely was a pretty serious wake up call. And yeah, it was embarrassing and humiliating and very scary and sad. Yeah, it was a really dark time for me.
Mm-hmm. So I
Yeah.
love that you make the point that if you don't listen, someone will tell you about it, and either someone or something, and that something, the common theme that I'm hearing is that it's people's bodies. Like they literally physically get sick and their bodies stop them from being able to continue down that path. And for you, it sounds like you were able to maintain your physical health. Maybe your mental and emotional health was suffering a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing that really was the 2x4 upside the head was like, a surprise, you're terminated.
Yeah.
Oh, bless your
Well,
heart.
when I've been listening to some of the other interviews and just following some of the other stories,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly reading a lot and researching a lot about burnout, because that's what I do a lot now to help informal caregivers, family caregivers to avoid burnout, is I realized that I did have a lot of unexplained pain in my body.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of stress in my back, especially my lower left back. I was running to the doctor all the time for pains and aches that were really unexplained in my body that probably had no real reason. But of course, I was asking for a scan and a this and a test. And yeah, I was waking up tired. I remember I don't know if anyone else has ever felt this, but like waking up and wanting to go back to bed. Like I can't wait to go till nighttime so I can go back to bed.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember being tired all the time, uh, like physically tired, mentally tired, and like unexplained pain in my body, and anxiety for sure. Not gripping anxiety. I was always able to function. Of course, we push through, right?
Functioning.
Yeah. And of course, one of the things, on my frequent trips to the doctor was I would always ask her for anti-anxiety, because I said, I just want to have it in the cupboard just in case I need it. And she was always very good about, I think she trusted me as a nurse, and we always had good conversations about it. But I think she did worry that I was becoming dependent on it. And I probably was. I was. Because that waking in the middle of the night and all the thoughts coming to you, not just about work, but of course, about family and children and relationships, finances, all the things that come to us at 3 a.m.
Yep.
So yeah, I was really depending on wine. I remember I couldn't wait to get home and have a glass of wine, just to take the edge off. Like I remember stopping on the way home from work to get wine. I don't profess to have been an alcoholic, but I know I depended more on wine than was healthy. And the same as with the Ativan, that I would take that just to make sure I slept. Or if I'd wake up at 1 a.m,
Gotcha.
I would go to the cupboard. So when
sorry to interrupt. You
no,
did this beautiful, beautiful post on Facebook, and you had posted it before I met you, and you were kind enough to share it with me. And it showed a picture of you, like, how many years prior was that? Like 2, 3, 4 years prior? And then you had a picture of you now. And the picture of you beforehand, like, it literally looked like you were worn out. Like you could see in your eyes, like you were tired and your face looked tired. And like looking at you now, like you are so beautiful and so vibrant. And I remember in that post, I made some notes. You said that you did a lot of interpersonal work, forgiveness, acceptance. You adopted self-care practices. You were seeking and receiving support, and you were taking action steps to a better life. So I would love to know, like on the interpersonal work level, like what kind of inner work did you do? And if there are nurses out there that like are like, well, I'm not getting fired yet, but somebody just told me that my face looked like I was telling them to F off. Like what do you recommend for them? Tell us about that inner work.
Well, after getting over the shock of everything,
sure.
I mean, and I mean, it was obvious that I would continue working, and I wanted to work, and but what I didn't recognize right away or give myself permission was to grieve, and not only like to grieve what just happened, that this was a loss, that this was a trauma. I think I kind of discounted it, like, oh, you know, there's way worse traumas in the world. You know, I haven't lost a child. I haven't, you know, I didn't just lose my parents. I haven't been abused. Like there's so many, I think we tend to discount our dilemmas as less than significance. And at the time, I don't think I gave myself enough permission to say, like, come down to planet Earth and like ground yourself and like get a hold of what's happened just now. And like, I just reacted, and that's just what we do, right? Like it's just get right back up on the horse. And I was starting to go to job interviews, and it's like, I'm not, like, I must have just been oozing, like, don't hire me. Because I wasn't healthy, right? And I didn't want the job either. So it was like, I was just raw. And in hindsight, I didn't give myself, and I don't think many of us give ourselves permission to like really acknowledge what's happened, like whether it was like a termination like me, or if you left on your own, or like whatever your situation is, when you kind of really realize, oh my gosh, I'm fried or I'm burned out, like to like just be with that for a little bit. And I clearly, my husband is so wise, but I remember one day, you know, seeing everybody go to work and seeing all the cars drive by and him leaving to go to work. I remember he physically went like this with his hands, and he's like, you need to come down. Not calm down, come down.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was literally like I was clinging from the ceiling. And I was like clinging to him when he would leave to go to work. And it was like him saying to me without saying it, like, you need to just like live in it, as hard as that is. And so that, I guess, probably is just what started me on this path. And I actually wrote down that I feel that there were people placed in my path for a purpose.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
I love alliteration. So people placed in my path for a purpose. And in seeking support, I reached out to a girl who did some life coaching. And I used to work with her in a different lifetime. She was a social worker when I was nursing, and I saw that she was doing life coaching now. And I'm like, that's so interesting. So I reached out to her, and I met with her a few times. And, you know, she got out the typical wellness wheel. And interestingly enough, for me, my spirituality was way near the top. And a lot of issues about death and dying. And it was so interesting. You know, for people that are familiar with the wellness wheel, like it's all about your relationships, your finances, your you know, your vocation, like your profession, your marriage, you know, it's everything, sexuality, it's everything. But for me, spirituality was really coming up for me. And I remember in the course of our conversations, she kind of said to me, you know, Karen, have you ever considered doing something like what I'm doing now? And I'm like, you know what? I years ago I did, and I just tucked the idea away. And so I kind of finished my work with her.
There you go.
Huh?
There you go. Not listening again.
No, I just kind of was like, yeah, oh yeah, all those years when I was in misery, that idea in the back of my head, but of course I wouldn't have listened to it. But it was interesting how she brought this up. And this is what I mean about one of the people that was placed in my path, because she kind of ignited that fire in me again. Like she brought that idea back to me. And then once it was there in front of me, I never let it go. And so I started working towards that. As far as the spirituality piece, like I did sort of return to my church after an absence. And I think I was really just looking for the closeness of community. And of course I got more involved in my church. And I really just, what I get from church is really just being a light in the world, and that we all have this capacity within us to be a light of goodness and to bring that forward. And
so I was having a conversation, I think it was with Esme Lawrence yesterday. She's wonderful. I'm going to be interviewing her soon. And we were talking about how, like, you, me, her, there's so many of us that have this like beautiful light inside of us. And at some point along the way, we forgot that it was there. And we have to remember that we are all created in God's image, and to not let that light shine, I heard somewhere, is like basically telling our maker no thank you to the gift that he's given us. And like the fact that it's always there and we just forgot and we're not using it in the way that we should be is like so enlightening, because it just kind of helps give you hope. Like, oh, I was made in his image. I have a gift. It was given to me. I just need to go and shine it. That's all that's required of me. It should just let it out.
yeah, and it doesn't always have to come out, even necessarily in your profession.
Absolutely. Yep.
It can come out in just very simple gestures of kindness. Like it can be something as simple as a smile, or having a conversation with someone, or helping someone. I think just for some of us, it does come out in our work, and just in the way that you are as a person. And that was the biggest lesson that I learned. And I guess that was why it was so interesting to me that spirituality was up near the top, and that all these issues about my own death and dying and the fears about my children and the sense of belonging, they were all kind of, I was working through a lot of those things. So that was a lot of the inner work that I did. And certainly I did reach out to, as I started to grow my business, I did get connected with a really wonderful coach here locally. And her little secret was, I really don't care about your business, because she was all about you being authentic and being able to step into being the leader that you are. And again, that's very similar to what you just said about in God's image, that, just being a kind person makes you a leader. But some of us, do go a step differently. And like a lot of the people that you interview, we do practice independently now. And so we're spreading a message. We're spreading the message about what we do. But I was really fortunate to connect with her and with a lot of the women that she supported, who have since become beautiful friends of mine. And they're so supportive. And there's just so much to be said about surrounding yourself with people like that, who have your back, because I didn't always feel so supported that way.
I'm sure.
And it was one of those people in that circle, when you asked me to expand a bit more about receiving. She actually challenged me once, and she said, what if you would just receive for a change? Like, what if you could just take in, like, a compliment or a comment or something positive, rather than give, because especially when you're in a profession as a nurse, you're give like 110%, right?
Yeah.
And we're not always so good at receiving. So the word receive and trust came up for me hugely. It was coming up everywhere, everything that I read, every graphic, every angel card. It was everywhere for me. But she really just, and that was kind of the beauty of some of these women in this group. And I did a couple of retreats with them, and certainly they were a focus on your business. But the core of it was showing up in your business and being your true self in your business, and doing a Facebook Live and not caring what your hair looks like or that you slipped up and said a word wrong, because like you're just human. And that's what people lean into, is like, she's not just some perfectly poised person who knows it all. Like, she's like me. And as a business owner, that's important, because your clients can lean in and relate to you. So her message was always very clear, and it was about being authentic and being yourself and being a leader and being an authentic leader, and so many wise lessons that I learned from her and from that group of women. And I mean, some of them are all over the place. One of them, I've just got friends all over the world now because of that connection. And so funny, Jessica, because when I was in that environment where I was burning out, I used to let the actions and my surroundings be so impacted by the 6 people who I struggled with so often, and I was always clashing with in this unhappiness. And I let those people have such an influence over me. And now today, I just think, like, I don't even know those 6 people. Like, those 6 people have been replaced by about 660 wonderful people that have had such a positive influence on my life. So when you can let go of some of that stuff, it just does let in so much more light and more room, right? Like, and I hear this a lot lately about when you're full, then you flow over, and it's that overflow that serves others, right? But you have to be full yourself. And it's just, I think of that a lot, how that environment, day in and day out, and the influence that I let that have on me, because you just get caught up in it. We've all got caught up in it.
Yeah.
And how today, like, it's just so insignificant.
Well, I can just like see how you're just like letting yourself be. And like, it's so neat to meet you and to have seen that picture of you, so long ago, and to see the difference now. Like, you look so much younger, and like just interviewing you today, you can tell like you're free, you're enjoying, you're just allowing yourself to be, and really just enjoying this journey of life, which is so freaking important. Like, we have this life and we're here to live it. Like, there's no reason to, not listen to those signs and to feel burned out. And I love what you said. I was kind of writing down as you were going through, and number one thing was listen to those small voices, listen to that feedback that you're getting, and really be willing to sit in it and give yourself permission to feel it, process it, like be in it for a minute and really figure out like what that means for you and how can you course correct. And I just love that you bring that up. So I know that now you have your own business. So will you tell us a little bit about how you're showing up in this business and what this business is and how this path kind of led you there? Because I love this story.
Yeah. Well, as I say, that person that kind of sparked that idea in me again, got me on the path of becoming my self-coined term of care navigator. I've always maintained my nursing status, and I always will. But as a nurse and working independently as a consultant now, I support family members that are struggling with caring for an aging loved one. And it could be their mom and dad, which is so common, or it could be their spouse, or it could be even an adult or young disabled child. But really my specialty would be more in the aging population. That's just where I've always sort of lived. So I have my business. It's Health at Home. And it was when I was preparing for a presentation, because I do a lot of community talks. I really feel it's important to be in your community and visible in your community, especially when you're pioneering something new like this, because care navigation is really a fairly new term. And I know in the States, sometimes it gets referred to as geriatric manager, which I'm not really liking that term, or care manager, but I call it a care navigator, because really what I do is help navigate the issues that you're going to encounter when you're supporting and caring for an aging loved one. And that could be anything across the board, right? And a lot of it that I've discovered is just dealing with some of the emotions that come with caregiving. But it wasn't until I was doing this presentation and I'm researching and I'm finding all these great material, and I'm like, holy smokes, I was burned out. I didn't even know that was at the root of all that. And I was like, yep, check, irritable, impatient, unexplained pain, frequent sickness, fatigue, overall grumpiness. Like it was just like all these things, and I'm just like, holy smokes, I was burned out. So now when I'm doing my public presentations, I mean, sometimes it depends on the group, but for the most part, I do tell them my story. I tell them how great it is to do what I do, and how exciting it is, a little scary, but exciting when you're pioneering something new. But it wasn't always this way. Yeah. And then I kind of explained to them, not that long ago, this was my environment, and this is what I experienced, and I was told, like, you're gone. And I had to recover from that, and on the year anniversary of my termination, I launched my own business.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't it sound like I make it sound easy, but there was a lot of work to be done, like not only on the business side of, I didn't know how to start a business.
Right.
But it was all the emotional stuff that I was dealing with at the same time. But it was nice to have a focus at the same time too. Like it was nice to have a goal to go towards. At the same time, it was kind of complicated really when you think about it, because I was trying to heal and recover. And forgive myself. And I know you asked me about that because, you hear a lot about forgiveness. And I used to think to myself, like, I can't forgive those people. Like, it was awful, and I'm not going to forgive them. And I really just couldn't look at it that way. But as soon as I was able to turn it around and say, like, I forgive myself for not being the perfect nurse or the perfect employee, or I forgive myself for being a manager but getting caught up in all the bad stuff that was happening in the back talk and gossip. And once I was able to forgive myself for not being perfect, for not being like the best nurse or the best nurse manager, I had to forgive myself. Because you know what, like I can't change anybody else. I can only change myself. Amen. And so it was like something clicked. And as soon as I was able to forgive myself, like it all changed.
Oh, it's so
and I just really kind of really started on this different path, and really got into my work and developing my work. And really my main focus now is really to help family members who are caring for aging loved ones and their aging spouses, so that they can avoid burnout. And it's a very different kind of burnout. It's different, but it's the same, because second to employees, caregivers experience the highest rate of burnout. Definitely. And I'm talking specifically about family members, not paid caregivers. But It's just a different kind of burnout, but really the symptoms and the outcome is often the same. But really that's my mission now, is just to help those family members. And I'm just, I'm trying to motivate them. I'm trying to inspire them. I'm trying to support them. Obviously there's like some education piece too, and like using my expertise, like all this stuff that I know.
That's so awesome.
About like home health and home care and whatnot, and like just really helping to try to get them like to navigate through like all those challenges that come with struggling to support someone. So
awesome.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I really, really love about this interview with you is, number one, I really appreciate you highlighting those little symptoms of burnout that kind of led you up to like that 2x4 across the head. Because I mean, I had a similar experience where I was like, having aches and pains, feeling anxiety, not sure what was going on, would catch myself crying, like driving into work. And I had no idea, like, what is happening? It was very confusing. And I feel like there are a lot of nurses that are experiencing those things and are just not sure of like what on earth is going on. And it's really being able to sort of identify those things and start listening to those little nudges inside and being willing to, admit like, oh, these are what these nudges are telling me. And it looks like there's change in my future. And then being able to really reach out to those people who are going to support you through that. And the other thing that I love so, so much about your story is that not only did you go through this sort of continuum of burnout until like the big, like, whoops, I got fired, but you took that experience and through that, you are helping other people to, number one, not reach that point, but also in this journey, it's part of your healing as well. And I think that's just so beautiful. I feel like intuitively you knew not only is this path going to help me heal, but it's going to help maybe prevent others from getting to where I was, or I can sort of help them through it. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I just thank you so much for being willing to share your story, because I can imagine that it's not an easy truth to share, to stand up in public and say like, I was fired. But what you created from that is so, so beautiful. So if we were going to leave our fellow nurses with, 3 to 5 sort of things like tools, tricks, mindset, any sort of tips that would help them, what would you think those would be?
Yeah, I wrote some down. You're going to love this. I replaced wine with water.
Gotcha. So if you find yourself leaning on alcohol too much, be willing to admit it and start drinking water. Yeah.
Well, these were just some of the practices that, like, it changed me, and that's why in that picture I look differently, is because, think about it, Jessica, I was loaded up on wine and Ativan. Like, well, not loaded up, I'm not in denial, but
I know what you mean.
At the same time, like, that's not a good combination, okay?
No, because really, like, it was a number. Like, it helped you numb and it helped take you down a notch without actually fixing the problem. And that's
and I slept it.
Right.
And so I could sleep at night. So I could do it all again the next day.
But it didn't.
I replaced
that you weren't sleeping. It just temporarily shut it off, and then you woke up in the middle of the night and ta-da, it's still there. Because guess what? You haven't dealt with it.
Right. Totally. So water instead of wine. Deep breathing replaced the Ativan. Deep breathing's been a lifesaver for me. So now when I wake up in the middle of the night, and we always have different things that are coming at us, and you're worried about your kids, you're worried about school, you're worried about Christmas, all these little worries. I just do deep breathing, and it works. Mindfulness has been huge for me. I'm really, when I find myself trickling into worry, I hate that word worry. I just remember, like, come back to today and what's good about today. And like when I'm out walking, like, this is what's around me, and this is nature, and this is what it looks like and smells like. Gratitude has been huge for me. sometimes I'm actually so overwhelmed with gratitude that I just, when you mentioned earlier about crying, I will not cry on my way to work because I don't want to go. Now I find myself in a position where, like, I'll just think about all the things I'm thankful for, and I get overwhelmed. I did not practice these things before. These are just things that, again, being surrounded by the right people and the right books and the right wherever you get your knowledge, or it's what you immerse yourself in. But just waking up and saying, like, what you're thankful for today, and the last thing before I go to bed, I always say, what are 3 great things that happened today? And like, sometimes I could list 10 things. Like time outside, walking, being really intentional who I surround myself with. That kind of goes back to the comment I said earlier about how I let those 6, 7 people have such influence over my mind and my thoughts, and how they've been replaced with so many wonderful people that have had a positive impact on my life. Like I am statements, like I am a good person, I am healthy, I am creative, I am, like, just all those things. We see these things and we're like, yeah, is that really gonna make a difference? But I tell you, when you dedicate yourself to those practices, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, I love that, because that's
journaling,
one of the tools that not only I use myself, but I teach them to my clients. Whenever you're sort of faced with something big, is ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, what's good about this? Because it will help pull you out of that hyper focus on everything that's negative. So answer the question, what's good about this? And number 2, what am I grateful for? Because regardless of what's happening, there is always something to be grateful for. And then I also teach what follows I am follows you. So be very intentional about what you choose to follow up with that. Like, if you're having a bad day and you say, I am angry, I am frustrated, I am irritable, like, guess what you're going to be? You're going to be angry, frustrated, and irritable. So you want to just change it a little bit to saying, I am feeling frustrated, because you're not your feelings, and you're certainly entitled to feel frustrated, but you're not frustrated, like, you're feeling frustrated. So be careful with those statements. And I love that that's part of your practice. It's so awesome.
Yeah, just like acknowledge and accept that. And I think that we don't, and I often suggest that to my clients as well. Like, it's okay, like, to feel sad. Like, it's okay to feel angry at your sister. Like, these are all very normal feelings, and you're human.
Feelings just want to be felt. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. They just want to be felt.
Yeah. So they're all, like I say, they're all practices that you read about and you see and you think. And I remember seeing this stuff about journaling forever, and I'm like, what? Like, what's that going to do? And sometimes I take a break from journaling. Like, we have to be gentle on ourselves and not be like trying to do all these things. Like, you have to do what works for you. And for some people, going to the gym and doing a really intense workout is their thing. And for other people, just being outside and moving your body, that's your thing. But we need to learn to be more gentle on ourselves. And it doesn't take, big rocket science things to nurture yourself and take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
You just have to do what feels.
You're exactly right. And it's small things done on a consistent basis. And when done on a consistent basis, those small things create massive results. So don't ever underestimate the power of, being intentional about an I am statement, or being intentional about saying what you're grateful for. Like, those things, they're small and they're easy to do, but compounded over time, they have massive results. And like, I think that you yourself are a testament to that, because those are those small practices that you added every day. It's like, it's not rocket scientists. You didn't do anything extraordinary to be able to shift your life in this direction. You just use those small tools often and compounded over time. You've got this wonderful result, this beautiful business, this like beautiful healing path. And I love it. There's a couple of other things that I wanted to sort of highlight about what you've said today before we end this interview. And one of them was to really give yourself permission. And I feel like a lot of times people are going through something and they don't even want to admit it, much less give themselves permission to feel it or process it. So if you need permission to feel or process something, I think Karen and I can both say, like, we will give you permission. If you don't want to give it to yourself, I give you permission. Karen gives you permission. Like, let yourself go through it. And then you also said, don't minimize. And I love that you said that, because I am sharing a lot of sort of bouncing back from burnout stories. And I want nurses to not compare what they're going through, but to know that they're not alone. And there are people out there to help you, to, that you can reach out to, that you can lean on. And there are so many things that I've been sharing through these interviews that you can incorporate into your own life to really help you heal through this. And so just really, I agree with you, Karen, do not minimize your experience. Your experience is unique. It's your experience. And when you compare yourself, you negate yourself. And that's never okay. So just be okay with knowing that your journey is your journey. It's unique. And it will be what it needs to be to prepare you for what's next. Karen, was there anything else that you wanted to leave our fellow nurses with before we sign off?
I don't know. I think we covered a lot of ground. But I will tell you one little story, and I think I told you when we were messaging that this might come up, but how I knew I was healed. I had a real aha moment last week at the mammography clinic. I was in having a mammogram, and in walks my old boss, someone who I struggled a lot of years with. We just were different, saw things through a different lens, as we all do, and I didn't feel a thing, in the sense that I didn't feel angry, I didn't feel bitter, I didn't feel nasty. It was just, we had a really nice conversation. And I came home and I told my husband, and I said that it was an indicator to me that I know I was healed, because sometimes seeing those ghosts from your past and like those will surface for us, and like if you end up leaving your workplace because of burnout, you're going to see those people, those doctors or those nurses or those other people wherever it was that you worked, and they will kind of remind you of that place again. But I clearly remember in my body thinking, like, I don't feel anything like the way I used to feel when she used to walk down the hall and I would hear her feet coming, and I was like, oh. It wasn't there. Like, none of that was there. And like, really, like, I always go like this. I'm going like this. It's like how that feels in your body, that stress and that anxiety, it just wasn't there. So that was just a little indicator to me, because that was probably the representation of probably the worst point in my career that I struggled. One of the worst points probably. And so the fact that I could have that conversation and not be feeling like I want to like do harm to her, or like it was just healthy is the only word that comes to mind. So it was so beautiful. It was really good.
I love it. That's an awesome story to end this interview with. And I just want to tell you that, like, I have so much gratitude for you for reaching out and for being willing to share your story and to help inspire, other nurses who are likely going through the same thing. Your message is beautiful. Your story is beautiful. And just thank you for, choosing to be here today. I really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you more. I know this won't be the last time that we talk, because I just really, I enjoy you so much. And just thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. Take care, Karen.
All right.